ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। उकारस्वन्धकारो वैरुकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिः न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायुः न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोशः न वाक्पाणिपादौ न चोपस्थपायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञा अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता च जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुनैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्। अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपः विबुद्धाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न चासङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेयः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्. The 6 verses of this AtmaShatkam or Nirvanashatkam are intended to be contemplative set of verses. Contemplation is a form of meditation, focusing your mind on a certain aspect of Atmavastu, Brahmavastu. So here the essence is Shivoham. I am the bliss. I am the auspicious. I am the one who is in the form of Ananda, untainted by any dukkha or bondage. And because in essence, I support every form and name, but myself without any name or form. And that is me. So that is a contemplation. But in order to arrive at that, I need to be backed up by a knowledge of who I am. Unless I know who I am, the statement that I am bliss, I am Ananda, I am auspicious, don't make any sense. They just remain fancy words, not being backed up by any understanding of who I am. So to even arrive at who I am, I start with who I think I am. So the human mind has a notion of who I am, which is avichara siddham, not backed up or not based on any vichara, any investigation. Without investigating who I am, there are certain conclusions about me that this is what I am. And those aspects where I locate myself are picked up and are negated. Na manaha. I am not the mind. When it is negated, just because these verses negate saying you are not the mind, doesn't necessarily create a favorable response in you to negate that you are mind. Because just because somebody wrote a verse saying that you are not the mind doesn't qualify it to be true. Someone may say you are not the mind, but am I the mind or I am not the mind is the question, isn't it? So let's look at what is mind and what does different sources of information on mind reveal to us. So I thought we'll start with the first verse. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham nacha shrotra jihve nacha grana netre nacha vyoma bhumihi na tejaha na vayuhu chit ananda rupaha shivaha aham. Neither am I the mind, nor the intellect, nor the sense of ego, or the memory, or the tongue, or the taste, or the hearing, ears, nor am I the smell, or the space, or the eyes which see, nor am I the space, nor the earth, or the fire, or the wind. But I am the bliss, Ananda, I am the Shiva, Mangala, I am the auspicious. That is the verse. Now, let's first start with what is this manaha, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. Okay. So, we can look at it from many angles. Okay. We will look at it from yogic angle. We can look at it from the modern science angle. We can also look at what other, philosophers like Nyaya Vaiseshika, how do they look at mind, ahankara, chitta? And also, how does Vedanta look at it? You see, first, what is this mind? What is buddhi? What is ahankara? So, mind, intellect, ego, and memory. These are the four things spoken of in the first line, right? Mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittani. Mind, intellect, ego, and memory. Okay, these are the four. So, what are these four? I don't know. I know only one full mind, right? So if we go to Wikipedia on what is mind, okay, how is the contemporary understanding? What is the contemporary understanding of what is mind? So, mind is a sum of cognitive abilities. See, now we are looking at objectively what is mind, okay, just observing the mind. So, when we say mind, it is the sum of cognitive ability that enable consciousness, perception, memory, thinking, imagination, judgment. Okay. So it is also defined as conscious or unconscious mental activity of a person. Okay, this is a Wikipedia. The whole thing I picked up from Wikipedia. Okay. Then the mind, there is also a definition which thinks, like we said, thinking, right, in the first paragraph, imagines, yeah, and memory, remembers, then the wills and senses. Okay, again, sensing is another, that is the perception. Judgment is making a conclusion, right? So, and there is also a will. I want to do this. Okay, that is also part of your mind. And anything which makes that whole set of activity, that phenomena happen, is also considered as part of the mind. And the whole emotion, right? That is also in mental activity only. So he says it is experiencing perception, pleasure and pain, belief, desire, intention, emotion. Okay. Now there is this other problem of, is mind purely a software, or how is it linked to the hardware, right? Which is the body. So that is where there is a dispute. Okay. So what is the relationship between the substances and the capacity of the mind? Okay. So the mind is looked at by so many people, right? Philosophers, the religions, psychologists. That's what it is said here. Cognitive science, even the physical science, right? And the anatomy and other things between the brain and the mind. What is the link? Okay. So brain is separated from the mind, or mind is, if mind is intertwined with the brain, then is mind a tangible physical object? If it is not, then brain is a physical entity, whereas mind is not a physical thing, right? It is subtle. So is mind, the mental state, is it an attribute of brain, or does the mind exist as an entity by itself? So this is what is the other problem, mind-body problem. Okay. What is the relationship between thought consciousness and the body through the mind, right? So, because what happens in the mind influences the body, and what happens in the body influences the mind. So, if you have sadness, you cry and the water comes out of your eyes. So, what is the relationship, right? When you are afraid, your body trembles. When you hear a joke, your body shakes. Yeah. And people even go to comatic state. Again, they get paralyzed. The heart beats fast when you hear something, and people get heart attack. So how is the mind related to the brain and the body? So is another big problem. Okay. And this whole, they talk about how drugs and even medicines, yeah, can influence the mind in many ways, right? Somebody can even go mad by just taking some opium and other things, right? So what is mind and what is brain and what is the body and how is it all related is a very complicated aspect that the science also finds difficult to understand. Modern science has, there are theories, but there is no conclusive, understanding on this. And how does one identify an object? Okay, so how does that mapping happen? How does a human mind perceive and identify classification, categories of objects? Okay, so what happens inside the brain? Okay, so this whole thing is cluttered, okay, because everything is considered as the mind. Okay, the word consciousness is also used in different way in different fields of science. Okay, so here I just picked up something again from internet on the differentiation between how modern view of mind is versus Vedanta. Okay. I thought it had a good way of classifying So I picked it up. So the flaw that I also agree with this, right? So when we look at consciousness, so in an objective fashion, when the uh, modern theorists, I would say, not necessarily scientists, people, these are all theories, right? There is no scientific approach or anything. It is a theory based on certain facts from science, and then based on what we observe, people come up with theories, right? So in the theory, the whole thing is approached from outside in. Okay. So therefore, there is a physical body and then there is a physical brain, and in which there is consciousness. Therefore, mind enables a consciousness, which is an attribute, right? Mind and consciousness are attribute of brain, which is the physical element, right? Within the realm of physical objects, there is this body, brain, and within that an attribute of mind. Now, Vedanta flips it around and then looks at it from the observer's perspective. When I look at how the whole thing works from inside out as an entity, does the mind influence the brain and the body, or it is the other way? Okay. So we will come into a lot of this detail as we go through this session, but essentially there is a huge difference between how this mind is looked at from contemporary thinkers and scientists' perspective, and how Vedanta looks at it. But there is certain categorization, which is done first on mind, okay, by bringing out 4 distinct abilities of the mind. Okay, this doesn't include emotion and other things here. Okay, purely from mental structure, right? So the relationship of emotions to brain and stuff like that is not, that's what I'm saying. So those are not spoken about, but purely the mental activity is classified into 4. That is what we saw in this verse also. Manaha, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. Okay, so in your mind, it's not just one confused pot. Okay, it has 4 distinct capabilities. One is emoting and thinking, which is chanchalatmakam, which is called manas. Sankalpa vikalpatmakam also we say. Okay, which is emoting and thinking part of thinking, as in like perceiving and other stuff. Then buddhi, which is your learning intellectual ability, right? Differentiate, discriminate. So this is buddhi takes decisions. Manas is emotional, right? It is like the heart. We say heart and brain, right? Heart is manas, brain is buddhi. Okay, so these are broadly 2 things that we all kind of understand, right? The third thing that is spoken about is ahankara, the I-ness. The I-ness is distinct. So you'll ask a question, is not I part of manas or buddhi? No. Okay. Because manas is fluctuating, right? It is not necessarily the I sense which is there in manas. Buddhi is more taking decision, discriminating, discerning, and coming up with conclusions, right? Ahankara is purely the I sense, right? That is called ahankara, not our bloated ego. We generally use ahankara as somebody's pride as ahankara, but here it's not about pride. It is I sense, that I as an entity, individuality. That is your ahankara. That is a separate function which is there both when the manas is there or the buddhi is when you are deciding, or neither of them is fully functioning. This I sense is there. Okay. Then the last is chitta, which is more of the memory, right? Recollection and memory and all that, which is a separate function, which is, even though is a mental activity, but it is the storage, right? It is like your CPU processing is manas and buddhi, whereas your memory S3 bucket is your chitta. Okay. So where the whole thing is stored. Okay. So that is what, that is how Vedanta divides it. Okay. We will in this context, before we get deeper into Vedantic vision of this, again, let's look at what the other Indian systems, how do they look at mind? Okay. So one of the, there are, okay, in the Indian system, there are many darshanas, we call it as darshanas. Okay. Astika darshana and Nastika darshana, or Vaidika darshana and Avaidika darshanas. The ones which are thought systems which are based on the Vedic school, so which includes Sankhya, Yoga, and all that, which believe in Veda as a pramana. And then there is Nastika darshanas, which are like Avaidika darshanas, like Bauddha, Charvaka, and all these people who don't believe in the Vedic system. So, but all of them have to deal with mind, because the whole any thinking and the school is about mind. So, like Buddhists also look at mind as Kshanika Vijnanam, all these things, right? The instantaneous, perceptions, consciousness, all that thing, they also talk about. But here, the yogic, yoga and Sankhya, again deal with mind, because that whole Yoga Shastra, Yamaniyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, the top three aspects there deal with mind. Okay, finally you are looking at Dharana, which is concentration of mind. Dhyana is more of a contemplation and cleaning, and Samadhi is where you go and merge, right? Now again, these deal with mind. So these are systems which look at mind. But then, how do they define the mind? Okay. So in Yoga Sutra, they look at mind to have 5 states. The 5 states are Kshipta, Vikshipta, Muddha, Ekagrata, Niruddha. Okay. So it depends on the kind of focus your mind is having at any point in time. That is how they classify. You are either in a full aware state where you are focusing and then moving from one thing to other, when you are in full of activity in the world. That is Kripta state. Then the state where you are processing information, right? You are just sitting and focusing on a range of thoughts. Okay. Without any specific focus, you are looking at processing loads of information. That is your Vikshipta state. And then they also talk about how the mind is in a dull state, not seeking knowledge. Okay. And then there is a Ekagrata. Even though you are focusing, you are not shifting from one object to the other, just being on one, like your dhyana. Okay. And then the Niruddha is where they are saying your mind is in control and is more where you have attained the Samadhi kind of state, right? Again, this is how the mind functions as per them. Okay. But what is mind made up of is another thing, right? Now, this is where a lot of these people rely on these Nyaya Vaiseshika. Nyaya Vaiseshika schools, even though yoga school also has a view on, the size of mind, right? See, Sankhya and yoga, if you see the second bullet on the top, they consider the mind to be of the size of the body. So basically, the mind is subtle, but it pervades this body. Okay, that's what they say. It is a subtle thing which pervades this whole body. And what do the Nyaya Vaiseshika? This is another school. So these are all Indian schools, right? So it's not only why I'm talking about it is, see, the mind is not spoken of only by the modern theorists and Vedantis. Okay, even the other systems, other darshanikas, whether it is yoga, Sankhya, Nayayika, Vaiseshika, or even Bauddha, all of them talk about mind. So let's look at how, see, because you have to look at, there is no conclusive way that everybody has converged on this is what mind is, right? So it is good to see what what the view of mind from different schools, so that any which way you look at it, there is certain conclusions that you can make. We'll come to that towards the end. Okay. Now let's look at what is Nyaya Vaiseshika. Nyaya is the Indian logic. Okay. So, and then there is a Purva Mimamsa. Mimamsakas are people who believe, Purva Mimamsakas are people who believe in the supremacy of Veda. Veda Yajna Yagadi, Karma. They are karmatas. They say the karma, Vaidika karma itself gives you whatever you need in life. So you don't need any Ishvara, Moksha and all that. Okay. Only that is their Purva Mimamsa. And for them also, they have to look at what is this mind, right? So all of them, they look at mind as an atom, atomic, a micro thing which is there inside. Okay. Because they also have to see how it relates to the body. Okay. Then there is another Purva Mimamsa school, which is not the Prabhakara school, which is Bhatta. They consider mind is all pervasive, which is similar to what yoga, Sankhya system that we just spoke about, right? Now, because it pervades, they come in contact with all parts of the body, and that's why the body functions function. Okay. So this will be little loaded, but yeah, it'll be worth to look at, right? Let me just, instead of just giving you a summary, let's look at how these people are defining. Sukha Dukkha, this is from the Nyaya, Tarka Sangraha, which is a Nyaya Grantha. Sukha Dukkadi Upalabdhi Sadhanam, Sadhana, one second, I have a problem. Because I'm not able to see the top, whether it is E or A or whatever. Okay, Sukha Dukkadi Upalabdhi Sadhanam Indriyaha Manaha. I think that's how it is. Okay. Tacha Pratiyatma Niyatatvat Anantam Paramanurupam Nityam Cha. So the definition as per Tarka Nyaya is Sukha Dukkadi Upalabdhi Sadhanam Indriyam. Okay. So the instrument through which happiness, sorrow, etc. are experienced is mind. So it is the emotional aspect of mental instrument, right? Is what is defined as the mind by Nayayikas. Okay. Pratiyatma niyatatvat anantam paramanurupam nityam cha. Okay. It is focused on each person, each entity, each atma, pratyatma. So it is linked to one person, but at the same time it is Paramanurupam, it is atomic, it is not gross. Okay, it is more atomic natured, and it is eternal, and it is anantam, because you cannot say this is where it starts and this is where it ends, because it is micro. That is how they define manasaha lakshanamaha sukha iti sparsha rahititve sati kriyavatvam manasaha lakshanam. So mind is, so this is how they define. These are people, logicians, Nayayikas, who define different things. They have definitions. Okay, this is the Indian way of defining. So they have definitions for everything. What is mind? What is Atma? What is human? What is color? What is attribute? All these things they will define, keep defining. Okay. So here the definition is Sparsha-rahitatve sati kriyavatvam manasaha lakshanam. The definition of mind is that which has activity, kriyavatvam. It has activity despite not having the function of touch. You cannot feel it. Sparsha-rahitatve sati. It is not available as a tangible entity, but at the same time, it is a functioning entity. Anything which is a functioning entity without being available for touch and other cognition, that is what is called manaha. This is their definition. Okay. Manaha vibhajyate ekaikasya atmanaha ekaikam manaha iti atmanam anekatvat manasaha api anekatvam ityartaha. So, for every atma, every soul, I don't know if I have to use soul, every individual entity, person, and person is human, right? For every individual being, there is one mind. Therefore, there are multiple minds. Okay, anekatvam. There are many mind. This is how they define paramana rupam. These are all mostly known. So, using the general observation, these people define this is what is mind. Madhyama parimanatve nityatva prasangadityartaha anitya. Yeah. So, if it is not a gross thing, is it not everywhere? And why do you say it is always existing? Non-existent, will it not exist always? These are questions asked. Nanu manaha vibhuhu sparsha rahitatvat akashavati chetna. Why can't you say mind is all pervasive? Because space is subtle. So it is all pervasive. So can you not say mind is all pervasive? These kind of questions are asked. Okay. So we can't get into a lot of these discussions around, but this is how one of the Indian thoughts, which is Nyaya Vaiseshika, look at mind. Okay, and then this is about memory. Sarva Vyavahara Hetu Jnanam Buddhihi. There are two types of, so all the transactional knowledge is what is called Buddhi for them. It's not, in Vedanta we say it is the deterministic part of mind. So here they are calling my Buddhi as transactional. Sadvividha, Smritihi Anubhavascha. There are two kinds of, knowledge instruments. One is recollection memory, smritihi. Second is anubhavaha, direct perception, right? That is experience. Samskara matra janyam jnanam smritihi, purely based on your mental impressions. That is what remembrance is, antecedents is what the word they are using here. It is called memory. Then that all we know, right? So, but then they are defining it. Tad binnam jnanam anubhavaha, that which is not purely based on mental activity, it is called anubhava, and that is vividaha, two types. Yatartha, yatarthascha, that is valid knowledge and non-valid knowledge, right? Ayatartha. Tadvati, tatprakarako anubhavaha, yatarthaha. Whatever is, as is there, you see it, it is knowledge. Yata rajate, idam rajatamiti jnanam. In silver, you see silverness, it is knowledge. Sava prama iti uchyate. It is a valid knowledge. Tad abhavavati, tat prakarako anubhavaha, ayatarthaha. So, basically, error is where you are seeing something on something else. Yata shuktau idam rajatamiti jnanam. Where in a pebble, you see and say it is silver. Sa eva aprama iti uchyate. That is erroneous knowledge. So, like that, again, Nayayika defines what is buddhi. Okay. So, that is also done. Now, let's look at buddhi, then chitta. Again, they have definitions. Okay, they have what is pratyaksha, what is nirvikalpa pratyaksha, what is savikalpa pratyaksha. So, when you are looking at some tangible things, so how does that knowledge, so do you have a distinct knowledge or you have a vague knowledge? So, those kind of things are looked at. That is how the mind and the knowledge is looked at in an objective fashion in some of the non-Vedantic Indian theories. Okay. Now let's come to Advaita Vedanta. So the Advaita Vedanta also looks at mind as a dravya. It is a dravya only. Dravya means that which flows. It is a tangible object only. It is not a byproduct, or it is not an attribute. Okay. So here also, Advaita Vedanta also looks at mind. We look at mind as that which pervades the body of the jiva, because you are able to sense somebody touching your leg. Okay. So that means through sensory perception, the mind pervades. In fact, any object that you see outside world also, it is pervaded by your mental vritti. That's how the knowledge takes place, as per the Vedanta Darshana. But mind is considered as part of the Antahkaranam, the inner body. We'll come to Antahkarana. So we already saw the 4 parts of the mind, right? So Manobuddhi, Ahankara, Chittani. Okay, what is the Ahankara? Ahankara is that thought which, so this again I picked up from net, it was useful. Okay. So ego is the Ahankara that constantly holds everything together, that I am an entity. Okay. And that I is very important, because only human being can make conclusion about I. And all your problems are also centered on this I. Okay. Your human problem, it's not the mind. Mind is an instrument. Buddhi also is an instrument. Okay. Chitta also is an instrument, memory. So these are things available to you. Okay. But what is the problem is centered around this individuality I. Okay. Because your conclusion, when mind is sad, you conclude I am sad. Okay. When the body has a problem, then you say I am having this problem. Okay. Like my headache, I am having headache. And my body's relations with something has a problem, then again I am hurt. Okay. And if my buddhi is not able to decide, confused, you say I am confused. So, and again with the emotions, you are saying I am happy, I am sorrow. So everything is centered around this ahankara I. Okay. So this I is one big part of the mind. Okay. Then come to chitta and manas. Okay. Again, chitta, we saw that it is memory. Okay. And manas is the constant chatter, right? The things which are fluctuating aspect of your subtle body is what is your mind. Mind or chitta is not a problem, right? A chatter can go on, it doesn't matter. So as long as your mind can look at things, it just keeps going, and then it takes rest. Okay. Memory also is not a problem. Again, everything is a problem only with reference to I. Okay. How the I relates to chitta and manas is where the problem is. And again, buddhi also, it is the same problem. The ahankara and buddhi interaction is where you have a problem. The ability to decide is never a problem. Okay. The intellect, you don't need to read the whole thing. Okay. I just doesn't say something so substantial that you need to read. But the summary is what I'm just, because I know it's a loaded slide, some of these. I didn't have time to clean it up fully, but I thought, I can just use this to talk through. Okay, so you don't have to do, I don't think you, unless people who are looking at the recording can probably pause and read this. Okay. Anyway, coming back. Okay, so the buddhi is taking decisions, right? It is basically the intellect. Okay, which is taking the decision. Right? So it has the ability, again, the buddhi alone has some advantage with reference to I. Okay, because the conclusions of I is made in the buddhi. Okay, your problems on centered around the I is because of the conclusions that are made in the buddhi. But the sukha dukkha happens in the manas. Okay, you are emoting on the buddhi conclusions in your mind, because the conclusions made on I is what is affecting your mind. Okay. So that is how these are all intertwined. Okay. So that is where Vedanta actually looks at how do you get your buddhi cleaned up. Okay, the cleaning up means raga dvesha. There is no clean up. Okay, what is clean up? Clean up means there should be some dirt, malam. Okay, now nirmala chittam we say, right? Nirmala buddhi. So what is malam? Malam is raga dvesha. Likes and dislikes is what is called as malam. Okay, the likes and dislikes are centered around I again, right? I like this, I dislike this, I want this, I don't want this. And that is what creates the problem. Okay, the likes and dislikes, what does it lead to? It leads to guilt and hurt. When you like something and you go after it, if you go after it in a dharmic, because your mind also knows what is dharma and what is adharma, right? Every mind is equipped with a knowledge of right and wrong. Okay, everybody knows, so long as it's a thinking mind, not person who has uh, who's an who has a mental problem, right? Like a mad guy and all that. So let's leave that. A normal thinking human being knows what is right and wrong, because like Vyasa says, what you want others to do to you, you do to others. What you don't want others to do to you, you don't do to others. So it's simple thing, right? Everybody knows that. So that means they know what is right, what is wrong. So when your likes are aligned to what is right, then there is no problem. When your likes are aligned to what is not right, then the person, if that person goes ahead with the like and goes against the understanding of what is right, then that becomes a guilt. Okay. Now the person has a like and they go after the like, even in the correct way, even if it is aligned to the what is correct, what is dharma, then he or she gets obstructed because somebody puts something in the path, and then so your likes you don't achieve, then you get hurt. Okay, so that is about like. Similarly, you can understand how the dislikes also create a guilt and hurt. Okay, and the hurt can also be about what others said to you, how others treated you, and guilt can be about how I treated others. So all these things lead to conclusions about oneself, and that is what this human problem is. That is called mala, dirt, because you are overwhelmed by likes and dislikes, and that goes in a cycle. Okay, you do something, get hurt or get a guilt, and then you do something else. It gets into a regressive loop. So this whole human problem is about getting into this quagmire of situations where I constantly and continuously keep building self-image, building the hurt, and over time I'm a bloated individual ego which doesn't know how to survive in this, self-loathing scenario. So that's where people then get to drugs and alcoholism and get into crime, because there is psychological uh, set of issues, right? And so that is extreme. Not everybody gets into that, but that is the other extreme, right? But overall, I am not comfortable with myself because this buddhi has this malinatvam, which is raga dvesha and guilt and hurt. So to come out of it, Vedanta talks about karma yoga, jnanam and all that. Okay, but again we are, let's at this time, okay, we are not the subject matter is not that, so we are just trying to understand what is buddhi and how it is associated with I and the mind, manas. Okay, So this is how Vedanta looks at it. And all of these together is called Sukshma Sharira in Vedanta. This is from Tattva Bodha I picked up these verses. These the form of question answer, not verses. Sukshma Shariram Kim. What is this Sukshma Sharira? So the Vedanta looks at it in a different way. Apanchi Krita Panchamahabhutaihi Kritam Satkarmajanyam Sukha Dukkadi Bhoga Sadhanam Pancha Jnanendriyani Pancha Karmendriyani Pancha Pranadayaha Manascha Ekam Buddhischa Eka Evam Saptadashakala Bissaha Yaha Tishtati Tat Sukshma Shariram. So the Vedanta is the ending portion of Veda, which consists of Upanishads, is called Vedanta. And these texts define three kinds of bodies: Stula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram. So why I am saying three kinds of bodies? Because it is a kind of different between different life forms. There is a human Stula Shariram, there is a animal Stula Shariram, there is bird Stula Shariram, there is insect Stula Shariram, correct? And there is Sukshma Shariram, the subtle body, which is software. Stula Sharira is hardware. And Karana Sharira is that which has created both these bodies. The Sukshma Sharira is here defined in this text based on Vedic Upanishads only. But this text, this Tattva Bodha, which is attributed to Shankaracharya, here there is a definition. What is this subtle body? Apanchikrita. Now I need to understand what is this apanchi. There is a panchikaranam spoken about. How do the elements, there are 5 elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Or you can say space, gases, fluids, then heat, and you can say all solids. These are 5 elements, gross elements. As per Shastra, the 5 gross elements are formed from 5 subtle elements. There is a subtle space, subtle heat, like latent heat and all that, and then subtle gases, subtle fluids, subtle solid. These elements, they come together to form gross. So the gross space is formed with 50% subtle space and 1/8 filled by fire, air, and all that. So which means yes, a gross space also consists of subtle space and some portion of fire, liquids, and all that. That is called Panchikarana. So the subtle ones are Apanchikrita. The subtle space and all these things, through them, the subtle body is formed. Through the gross elements, the gross body is formed. That is the idea. So Apanchikrita Panchamahabhutaihi Kritam. And how is it from Satkarmajanyam? Due to Satkarma, due to whatever punya that you have done, Sukha Dukkadi Bhoga Sadhanam. In order for you to experience happiness and sorrow based on what you have done in the past, this body comes up. Pancha Jnanendriya. And what does it comprise of? The 5 sensory instruments like ears, nose, and all that. That is Pancha Jnanendriyani. Pancha Karmendriyani, 5 senses of 5 instruments of action, like your hands, legs, and all these. Pancha Prana Deha, the five vital forces like the breathing, distribution system, like your blood circulatory system, all these things. Those are five life-giving forces which are in your body. Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana, and all these. Then your manas, mind, buddhi, intellect. Okay. Evam, Sapt, all these 17 together is called Sukshma Sharira. The Ahankara is not included, Chitta is included. They are probably included as part of the mind. Now, what is the import of it? That this whole mind and intellect also is through the subtle elemental creation only. And Jalasya Satvikamsha in Satvikamshat Rasanendriyam Sambhutam. So again, each of these Indriyas, it is shown from which part of the subtle element they have come up. And there is a definition if you see below. Pancha Tattvanam 20 Etesham Pancha Tattvanam Samashti Satvikamshat Manaha Buddhi Ahankara Chitta Antahkaranani Sambhutani. So here he speaks about Mano Buddhi Ahankara Chitta, all four. And they are formed from Panchatattvanam Samashti Satvika Amshas. The Satvika Amsha, there is a Amsha, there is a three Amsha, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Amsha. Okay, so again, these are all little involved things. We don't have enough time to talk about that detail. But essentially, the Satvika Amsa, the Satvika content of the five Sukshma Tattva elements is how Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, and Manas are formed. Okay. Then there is a definition: Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha Nischayatmika Buddhi. What is mind? What is intellect? Ahankarta Ahankaraha. The what is ego? We already spoke about. Chintanakrit Chittam. The faculty of thinking. Here, Chitta is defined instead of memory. Here, see, you can take it as both ways. If you see here, faculty of recollection or thinking faculty. See, since thinking is broken between Manas and Buddhi, we generally take it as recollection as Chitta. And each of these have a Devata and all that is how it is looked at. Now, let's look at what Upanishads say about mind. We have only 10 minutes, so I have to quickly rush this so that we can come to why I am not mind part. Okay, we have 8 minutes. The food that is eaten becomes, see again, Upanishad, you see here. So this Antakaranam is formed through subtle elements, through the food that we eat, is how the whole thing is spoken about. Okay, so some of these we will see in the next class. So let me come to the core aspect, right? Am I the mind? Okay, is the question. Okay, some of these we will see in the next class in terms of what the Upanishads say. Okay, but let's look at am I the mind. Now, if we look at this as the mind, so what did we see today? One is how the modern theorists look at mind. Second is how yogic school look at mind. Then how does the Nayayika look at mind? And how do Vedanti look at the mind? Right? Irrespective of what the mind is, okay, is the mind, the mental mind, when I say mind, buddhi and chitta, you leave the ahankara for now, okay, you take all these things. Are these things known to me or not? Whether you take it as atom, whether you take it as linked to the brain, body, look at it from the observer's point of view. As an observer, do I know I am happy? I do know. Do I know I am unhappy? Yes, I know. Do I know that I am thinking about this? I know. Do I know I have ignorance of this? I know. Do I know I have knowledge about moon?
Yeah, I know. So I know what I know. I know what I don't know. I witness my emotion. And when I am in deep sleep, when there is no mind, I exist to come back and say that I was witness to absence of mind in deep sleep, because I am able to come and say I slept very well. So now, as a Sakshi, I exist beyond my mental activity, right? Irrespective of whether I have mental activity, I have emotion. I, as an entity, supersedes all these. Even when the mind is there, I have to be there. When I am making decisions as a buddhi, I am there. When there are emotions, I am there. When none of this is there, also I am there. Because I am able to come back and say that none of these were there, whether it is in deep sleep or even in a Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or when somebody had anesthesia and came back, you are able to say, because the existence is superset of all these things. Okay. So we are looking at it from observer's perspective. Now this I sense, you can say, when I'm having a deep sleep, at that time I'm not able to say that I exist. Okay. Only in the retrospective you are saying. That is because you need the mind to recollect that and make a statement. Or even to make a statement, you need buddhi vritti. There has to be some process of flux in your mind for you to even make a statement that I exist. Therefore, the mind apeksha is there to express and even perceive your existence. But the fact that even if you don't have a mind and you perceive your existence, you do exist, right, in your deep sleep. So if that is the case, then am I the mind? That's the question. If I am the mind, then even in deep sleep, mind has to be there. Then only I can say I existed. Therefore, an observation from an observer's perspective, it is distinctly seen that the mind, through at least witness perception, is part of my this cognition and not the I cognition. Okay, only ahankara also is a conclusion around I. Okay, we'll come to ahankara a little later. But at least the other parts, manaha, buddhi, and chitta, all of them are part of this cognition, either as a witness perception or as directly knowing. Okay. Because emotion is witness perception, but knowledge, you are seeing that I know, I don't know. So that's why I'm saying both witness perception and direct perception in this case. Okay. Or both you can say as witness perception also. That's fine. But they are part of this cognition and not I cognition. Okay. I know as this. The fact that I know as this means that it cannot be I. Now, whether you look at mind as an atom, or mind pervading the body, or mind pervading everywhere, it really doesn't matter. Okay. The fact that it is made of elements also makes it part of this cognition. That is why we see that the mind. So why we have to say it is based on elements is because what the modern science also says, right? When you eat certain food, your mind is affected. Yeah, you take certain drugs, your mind is affected. That means it is part of the elemental model only. Then only it can get affected. Otherwise, how can food affect it? And again, how can your mind affect your body? It is possible only if it is based on subtle elements. That is why the Vedantic view of the whole mind and the inner instruments being based on elements are more appropriate, because we see that there is an interaction between them. But the fact that they are made of elements and have an interaction with the body and other things which are part of this cognition, make the mind also as part of the this world. I'm saying this world means which is part of things that I know as this. Therefore, I cannot be the mind or buddhi. It can be mine, but it can't be I. So, mana, buddhi, ahankara, chittani, na aham. They can't be I. But you will say, but you can always say, this is my mind. But you can't say, this is I mind. Okay. That my mind also we will look at later. Is it a my mind? What is the connection between the I and this mind? We have to see, analyze. But for now, we can conclude it cannot be I. Manaha, buddhi, ahankara, chittani, naham. So, manaha, buddhi, chitta we have seen. Ahankara also, is it naham? Is something we still have to see. We'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.